Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is my very first video. I know you're probably wondering, like, who is this guy? Of course, because it's the first video. My name's Ronan. I'm an artist and illustrator. Uh, I got a really cool webcomic called The Heavy. You can check it out in the description below. If you like guns, you like super detailed mechs and environments, militaristic action, stuff like that, check out the comic. I think you'll like it. I mean, obviously, I like it because I made it, but maybe you'll like it too. But that's not what this channel's primarily about. It's really just about comics in general. What I plan on doing here is a lot of fan art of comics I love, such as Marvel, DC comics, independent comics, obviously Image comics. I mean, I grew up in the '90s loving those comics. And also probably some video game fan art as well. I love video games. But anyways, let's get on with the video. Today I'll be inking an illustration I did for a comic book I really like called Batman Year 100 by Paul Pope.
So it's kind of funny, really, because my first couple of videos are on DC characters, but honestly, I'm more of a Marvel dude, so it's weird that I'm doing this, but you know, uh, it is what it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really do like DC characters in general. I just don't like the stories or how the comics are written. I mean, Batman might be my favorite character, period, amongst superheroes, but I just don't like the stories uh, in DC comic books. And that's just the way it is, how I feel about it. We can fight in the comments if you want. I'm a Marvel dude. I'd say I'm still more of a traditional artist. I mean, or maybe half and half. I still draw on Bristol board in ink, but I color on the computer. So as far as my illustrations, comic illustrations go, it's kind of half and half. So this is just plain old Strathmore Bristol board, and I've got some Micron ink pens, and that's what we're going to be using today. Batman Year 100 was a cool miniseries done in 2006 by Paul Pope. I'd been aware of Paul Pope for a while, but this was the first comic done by him that I bought that really got me into him. Now I'm a really big fan of his, but yeah, this comic was pretty dope. So this was a pretty fun illustration to do because Paul Pope has a totally different style from mine. It's very loose, a lot of energy in it. You can tell he uses, a brush and a nib. As opposed to what I do, I have a very clean line, open style. So it was really fun to do it because it was kind of an opposite style of mine. I didn't totally channel and grasp his style, but there's a little bit of that in there. I don't usually put this much black on the page. And it's a little bit looser, quote unquote, than I would normally do it. I originally did another drawing, but I felt like it was a bit too rigid. It didn't evoke the energy, like the kinetic power of his version of Batman. So I decided to redraw it. I really like iconic poses, so that's another reason I decided to redraw it. The original drawing was not really iconic looking, so I decided to put him in the classic pose of Kaneda skidding on his motorcycle from Akira. Probably one of the most redrawn and imitated poses out there. So let's get back to the subject at hand, though. The comic Batman Year 100 takes place in dystopian Gotham in the year 2039. It's kind of weird because it's not an Elseworlds title, but I mean, it's clearly a prestige format book. I don't know, it doesn't seem to take place in continuity though, so I don't know what you would call this. It's kind of weird because it's like in this version of continuity or reality, this universe, Batman seems to not exist, or rather he hasn't existed for a long time. to such a degree that, you know, everyone's forgotten about him. But this doesn't seem like his first mission. It doesn't seem like his first outing, you know what I mean? So it's really kind of confusing. And then at the same time, though, this is obviously not Bruce Wayne or the Bruce Wayne from the past, because it's in the future. So there's a lot of mystery surrounding that, and they never really get into exactly who he is, which I think makes it kind of interesting. More interesting than if they were just to lay everything out and explain everything to you. So the story is nothing to write home about. I mean, it's no Watchmen or whatever, but it's very serviceable. I mean, it's a pretty good story. It kind of touches on the themes of like this dystopian future where this big brother type government is watching everything. They know everything. They know everybody, but they don't know who the Batman is, which makes it kind of cool. So the Batman gets framed for the murder of this federal agent, and they're hot on his heels. Meanwhile, the grandson of Commissioner Gordon and Batman are trying to figure out why this agent was murdered, and they uncover a bunch of corruption within this agency. It's a pretty cool story, like I said. The really interesting part about it really is the Batman, not necessarily the story, I would say. One of the coolest parts about the book is, Paul Pope's depiction of Batman is really cool. He's very gritty, very down to earth, very real. When I say gritty, I don't necessarily mean like dark. I just mean very realistic. A lot of times in comic books, when they want to make something realistic, that means darker or more violent, and he doesn't do that here. As a matter of fact, his uniform is very much reminiscent of olden days. The outfit's kind of a throwback to like a Bob Kane design with a little bit of, Jack Kirby thrown in there. So it's kind of old school in this look, and they definitely weren't dark and violent back in the olden days. Speaking of his costume and realism, it's pretty cool looking. It doesn't look like something a billionaire could have fabricated like in the normal comics. In the normal comics, his uniform is kind of crazy. Here, it looks like something that a guy with some resources could get made. It looks bespoke. The boots are like combat boots. It looks like swim trunks on the outside of the pants. The mask looks like it's made of leather that someone maybe put together. You can see the seams in his uniform, you know what I mean? You can see, like, the gloves are not super long gloves that go up the forearms like in a lot of comic books. And you can actually see where the skin of his wrist pokes out, you know what I mean? It's just really interesting. And actually, this is one of my favorite versions of Batman. I'd say this is probably my top version of Batman, really. Clearly a lot of thought was put into making it look realistic, but also making it look cool. So the practicality of this version of Batman also extends to his gadgets as well. He has cool gadgets and stuff, but nothing over the top like he would have in the normal version of the comics. I mean, he does have a couple of cool devices because it is a sort of futuristic sci-fi comic. So, I mean, he has like an EMP device. He never uses it in the comic book, I don't think. Are EMPs even real? We have them in comics and video games and stuff, but is that even a real thing? Anyways, he has more down to earth things in his pouches and stuff, like smoke bombs, matches. In Paul Pope's notes, he talks about he has a protein bar because he'd need, the energy. He also has credit cards, which is kind of funny to think about Batman carrying credit cards on him. But I mean, he needs something to pay for stuff with, so he has credit cards and cash on him. Also, he doesn't have, a Batmobile or a Bat Tank or a Bat Wing or any of those things. He just has like a really cool motorcycle that, oddly enough, he calls the Batmobile. I don't know why, but it's pretty cool. I mean, there's one part where he has it hanging upside down, and I'll try and find a picture of it. It looks like a bat hanging upside down. It's really dope. The realism also extends to the way Batman behaves and how he works. It's not like in the normal comics where he's like this genius level intellect, 1,000 steps ahead of everyone else. Here, he's kind of like he's a little bit ahead of everyone. He's really smart, but not unrealistically smart. He's not, Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean? He's just a really capable dude. For instance, he has this team that he relies on. He has a doctor. He has this hacker girl who's the daughter of the doctor. And he has what you would guess is a Robin. But he really relies on them. It's not like in the comic books. Where, I guess he does have a team sometimes like Oracle or some of these other people in the Bat family. But here, it seems like he really needs them. The realism of the comic also extends to like the way Batman operates. The action is more realistic. When he's in fights, he's not the best fighter. He's a great fighter in the comic, but he takes quite a few licks in this comic book. You know what I mean? Whereas in the normal standard comic, nobody can touch this guy. At one point, he jumps like a 25-foot gap, and everyone freaks out because it's like the craziest thing they've ever seen. So it's very grounded in this comic. At one point, Batman comes across a telepath who works for the federal agency, and it's a pretty big deal when he encounters this dude. He seems to have the power of like mind control and persuasion and stuff like that, but nothing too crazy. Certainly not something like a Professor X or something. So there will be no one in this universe like Superman or Wonder Woman. So I'm adding the finishing touches here, filling in the blacks with my brush pens, various ones, Copic or Copic, however you say it, as well as my microns. And also, I'm filling in the cape with a Sharpie marker. Normally, I wouldn't use a Sharpie, but the surface area of that cape is just so huge. I don't want to waste my expensive pens on it to put the first couple layers down. So I put the first 2 layers down with the Sharpie, and then I go back over it with the Micron Pigma brush pen. So here's the black and white version, and here's the colorized version. It's about 11 by 14. I'll be posting this on my Instagram, so please go over there and give me a follow. And I'll be posting other fan art illustrations on there as well.
So there you have it. That was my very first YouTube video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. I hope you guys will bear with me a little bit through this because it's a really new process for me, learning video and editing and all this stuff. But if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, leave comments down in the comment section. Like I said, I'll argue with you. I'm a Marvel dude. Tell me why you think DC is better. I won't believe you, but you can tell me. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace.